Today, we're looking at Robert Oster's Berry Dash. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Robert Oster's Berry Dash is kind of a violet with brown color. It's very interesting to look at. Before we get to the writing samples, let's take a look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography. And I agree with Vita that doing multiple chromatographies over the years has taught me a lot about the performance of these inks. Looking at the one on the left, you see that when I put the line down, I put it into water, it immediately creeps up. We see some of that very nice kind of magenta, and we've got this very noticeable blue line, like a highlighter blue line across the top. It's a really interesting chromatography to tell you what you're getting in your colors. Now, the one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I put it into the water. And it performed exactly the same. I saw no difference. The same blue line at the top, the same dark magenta at the top, the lighter magenta all the way down towards a pink at the bottom. But I expect no water resistance for this ink. Now, resistance tests are done so I can know how to expect this ink to perform on paper, as well as how hard it might be to clean out of my pens. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before I test it. What I see when I look at the highlighter is that it performs kind of okay. I'm going to call it kind of okay. The words aren't destroyed. They definitely spread quite a bit from what was originally there as an extra fine. But if I had to highlight what was written with this, it would survive. When I look at the water, I see that it mostly activates. It's almost completely pulling this ink off the page. I expect with some more time, it would completely pull it off the page. Flush is doing the same thing to a little bit more of a degree. It's pulling even more of it off the page than the water did, which is what we expect with Flush. I don't know that this ink would require you to get that far in cleaning out your pens. Bleach totally removes it from the page. There's nothing left once you put that dot of bleach down. And it only had 30 seconds on that. Now, this is a bell curve or a normal distribution. For the 365 inks that I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, viscosity being just like its flow. Now, normal is the range from 2.1 to 2.9. Robert Oster Berry Dash has a viscosity of 1.92, which means it is a wet ink. It should perform well in your dry pens, and generally speaking, unless your pen is truly a gusher, it should not give you any kind of problems. This is a bell curve for the average dry time. On the 365 inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds. Now, normal goes anywhere from 13 to 21 seconds. Robert Oster's Berry Dash has an average dry time of 15 seconds, which means it is a completely normal dry time. Now, the way I find my dry time is I take the average in my writing samples of the extra fine and the medium nib done on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Let's take a look at the writing sample. I got this ink in sample form, and actually I've ordered more than one sample accidentally, which is why this sample looks so full. To keep consistency in my writing samples, I use a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 Goulet stub. I use a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's look at Clairefontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting, and in the 1.1 we get no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, little bits, barely, of shading. We see it on the A, but nowhere else. We have a really dark kind of violet with it. Maybe maroon, violet maroon-ish. On the 1.1, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade whatsoever. 9 seconds to dry. With the medium, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, some shading. We see a little bit of shading with the over in the, some in the quick, some in the dog. So we do start getting shading here. 15 seconds to dry. When we look at the scrubby, we see what we saw in the writing samples. No shading in the extra fine, shade with the medium. And on the smear test, if I smeared this while writing, I would be able to recover it. Let's look at Tomoe River. With the Tomoe River, we have no bleeding. We do have ghosting. The little bit that came through, that's me, that's user error. We see a lot of that on my channel. With the 1.1, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. It just is, but it's nice and dark. It's darker there. It's hard to tell on camera, but it's like one shade different than the extra fine. On the extra fine, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, nothing, and 17 seconds to dry. With the medium, same performance, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 23 seconds to dry. Now when we look at the scrubbies, we see that we're not going to get any kind of shading with this ink. I don't expect to be able to get it. And on the smear, I don't know that I get to recover it. Oops. Rhodia. With Rhodia paper, we get no bleeding, no ghosting. The results when I'm writing this in my notes are the same here, so there's no need to put them. There's no color difference for using a different pen on this. With the 1.1, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no shade, no sheen, nothing. It's dark, though. On the extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 10 seconds to dry. With the medium, we get no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 17 seconds to dry. And I'm going to go ahead and point this out. You know, I'm not going to be doing this a lot in videos, but if I do a color swab, it looks like I get a bunch of different colors. But I don't get that in my writing. So to me, the swabs don't always really give me what an ink does. That's why I do so many writing samples. I actually do more writing samples than the 5 I usually show. I just choose 5. I don't know if I did it. The medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 17 seconds to dry. Looking at the scrubby, no shade, no change. But on the smear, I would be able to recover this. Now, this is a Monokaki something like that paper. A notebook I went and found. It seemed okay. For the most part, the paper's done pretty good. This is not bleed through. It's not from it's from the paper underneath. We have no bleeding. We have some ghosting. It's a thin paper. So this is thin. It's nice. It's not as thin as the Tomoe River. But it's the Monokaki Monokaki notebook. With the 1.1, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. When we look at the extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no shade, no sheen, 6 seconds to dry. Just because it's between the darker 1.1 and a darker medium, you see that it is a light, just a little bit lighter, just a hair. So we can get a little bit of color variation when we alter the pen. Now, when I took my notes with a Pilot Metro, it didn't look any different. So maybe going to something super dry like the Mnemosine Singularity is a good way to go. But I'm not really seeing color variation. This is the first I'm seeing of it. The first one. I look at the scrubby and the extra fine looks like it should be able to have a little bit of color variation, a slight bit. The medium, none. And on the smear, I would be able to recover this. So I like this paper a little bit more than I do the Tomoe River, because the smears don't make it all just go away instantly. Now I have TWSBI paper. Got an extra sample I don't need. I have the TWSBI paper up next. I like using fountain pen manufacturer's paper because I like to be able to see how well their paper performs. Let's see them make nice paper. TWSBI has no bleeding, a little bit of show through. The show through is just because it's a light or a darker ink. Much more on camera than what's in person showing. Looking at the 1.1, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, nothing. Again, a tad bit lighter of a shade of this like violet brown with the extra fine. We get no feather, no spread, no halo, no shade, no sheen. 9 seconds to dry with a TWSBI notebook. With a medium, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 14 seconds to dry, but I'm going to talk about this paper for a second. This is the paper I actually use for my ink journal, what I keep track of, what's in my pens. I use a TWSBI notebook because I don't worry about whether the sheen's going to show up. I don't know that sheening inks have come across the channel just yet, but I'm not worried about the sheen showing up in my ink journal. I just want to know what's in the pen. I use this because it's a very well-performing paper. I like what it does. So that's what we got for the writing sample. Instead of finding inks that look like Robert Oster Berry Dash, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I've chosen Diamine Cerise, or Cerise, C-E-R-I-S-E, Cerise, because of its red magenta color. I thought it would really work with the brown that we were getting. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. Now, to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into a different pen and use that for a day. And then I put it into a Pilot Metropolitan with a medium nib to take my notes for this video. So what do I think of Robert Oster's Berry Dash? While there's almost no shading, I do find that when you put it down with a heavier flowing pen or much broader nib, that you get this really neat brown that shows up with it, and it's a pretty color that way. So now the big question, would I purchase a bottle of this ink? Yes, I would, because I think the fact that it can display more than one color at the time that you're writing just by being so much darker in those areas, that I think that's beautiful, and that's definitely worth having and using just to get that particular part. So yes, I would buy a bottle of this ink. Thanks for watching.